Hey everyone, Ted from TED Talks here. I have been shooting with the Fujifilm X-E1 for about over a month now. It has been the camera that I've taken with me pretty much everywhere. It's my to-go camera, basically. I just drop it in my commute bag. Originally bought this camera to take photos with it and to be able to carry it around with me everywhere I go instead of taking pictures on my phone. That way, I get better at taking photos on cameras. If you see the last video I put out on this camera over a month ago, I basically stated pros and cons of buying this device. The Fujifilm X-E1 came out 7 years ago, so longer than that 5-year range that people recommend you buy a camera. It has the first sensor, the first X-Trans sensor that Fujifilm made that's in this camera, and it's also the second camera ever made in their X lineup. Because of how old this camera is, I was able to get it for $150. And in terms of how dated it is, the camera only shows its age in mostly how I interact with the camera and less about image quality. Some things that this camera doesn't have. The cons of this camera is that, there's only 2 programmable buttons, the function button at the top and the down button. The command dial, it only works to change your aperture, interact with the quick menu, and focus peaking and focus checking. That's it. Like, you can't scroll through the menu with the command button here. Lenses, 90% of the time, if not 95% of the time, I am shooting with the Per Gear 25mm lens. It's a full manual lens that I was able to buy off eBay for $55. Again, wait for the review on this lens. And then the other 5% of the time, 4% of the time, I'm shooting with the 50 to 230 telephoto lens, the X-E series, and 56mm 1.2. I really do like, the size of this 25mm lens. While I share my experience shooting with the Fujifilm X-E1, mostly with the 25mm lens, I'll also be sharing photos I've taken with it either straight out of the camera or, done with a little editing on Snapseed. Now, because I'm using a fully manual lens, the camera cannot read the f-stops off the lens. So most of the time, I'm either shooting in manual or aperture priority. Because I'm shooting in manual, I am always dependent on the Fujifilm's X-E1's focus peaking that it gives me, which, to be honest, is not very good. It's a very light focus peaking, and because it's so light, I have to always double twist that I am in focus, and that I have to pinpoint the focus area. Part of the problem is, the X-E1 only offers focus peaking in white. And then you have the other problem of because there's no articulating screen on this thing, oftentimes I have to contort my body or strike a uncomfortable pose to get the shot. And sometimes, getting that shot means I can't see the LCD screen, so trial and error. However, because, I'm taking so much time getting focused, it also means, by that extent, I'm also taking more time getting the shot. So I'm also better composing my shots because I have to take that time. And because I'm taking so much time, or the photos I'm going to take a picture is going to take some time, I often am not really shooting something in action, but I'm shooting something in still life or stationary. I mentioned this LCD screen. Funny enough, I'm actually an EVF guy. It just feels like I'm an actual photographer with it. But I found out that, using the X-E1, I'm actually using the LCD screen more. Interesting. I think it's probably because it probably has a bigger screen. Another feature that I'm surprised I'm using a lot more on the X-E1 is the exposure compensation, either 2 stops up or down. And that's not something exposure compensation is not something I've used on the X-T1 when I had it, or the X-H1, which I'm using now to record. But I'm actually using it all the time on the X-E1, and it's a really handy feature. Like I said in my last video, once you can only use the dial, the hardware dial on the X-E1 when you're in aperture priority, shutter priority, or program mode. Once you're in manual mode, you can no longer use it, and then the directional buttons on the back are what you would use for exposure compensation then. I don't know why that is. Speaking about the programmable buttons, I'm mostly using the function button on the top for ISO, and then the down button, I'm using it for whatever strikes my fancy for that day. So some days I'll have it set to Some days I'll have it set to multiple exposures. Some day I'll have it set to film simulation. Some day I'll have it set to white balance. But all in all, that's mainly been my experience shooting with the Fujifilm X-E1. I am taking more photos with this camera because it fits even in my smallest bag. And actually, this weekend while I was taking a trip, with garage sales, and I also took it to a protest, I handed it off to the guy, and he was like, he liked the look of the camera. And I told him, like, I got it. It was for $150, and he couldn't believe it because, for $150, if you get something that feels like a camera and is completely premium, and it was like, even though the camera feels fantastic, I would not pay more than $150 for the Fujifilm X-E1, like I said in my last video. And once again, I would probably pay $100 more to get the Fujifilm X-E2 or the X-T10. But again, I have been happy shooting with this. So like it's flash. I do see myself, sticking with this camera for years to come. Like, I think this could be after this month, this could be the start of a beautiful relationship, X-E1. That's been my shooting experience with the Fujifilm X-E1. If you guys have any questions because you're thinking about getting this camera, shoot a question below in the comment section below, and I'll get to it. Subscribe and hit the notification bell because I'm gonna be doing a review on this lens I was able to get for $55, which is a hell of a price for a lens, wouldn't you say? But that's the show, folks, and you guys have a good day.